Hey everyone, and welcome to the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast, the best place in the entire world, including all of Canada, to learn how to build new thoughts, new actions, and new results. I'm your host, Jon Acuff, and today I want to jump off by saying happy December 26th. Happy December 26th. What a weird day that is, right? I don't know about you, but this day always feels a wee bit melancholy to me. There's all this buildup until December 25th. There are songs and parties and presents and countdowns. And then on December 26th, you just kind of look at each other and you're like, you want to grab a pizza or something? There's this kind of letdown to this day, but not this year, because I'm about to drop my two favorite episodes of the entire year. That's right. It's an end of year two-parter. Before we jump into part one, here's a quick word from the sponsor of today's episode. Hey, it's Jon Acuff, and I am already thinking about what I want to accomplish in 2023, and I bet you are too. But here's the thing. According to the University of Scranton, 92% of all New Year's resolutions fail. 92%! Those aren't great odds. They're not. But here's the good news. It's not impossible. In fact, 8% of people finish their New Year's resolutions. They write the book, they get in shape, they grow the business, they learn the foreign language, they do it all. How? Well, that's what my brand new free Guaranteed Goals Challenge is all about. With the right tools, you can stack the deck in your favor, and it's all possible with 4 simple words. These 4 words took me from publishing 0 books to publishing 9. They took me from running 0 miles to running thousands. These 4 words took me from my first salary at an ad agency to making 50 times that. You heard that right, 50 times that. These are powerful words. And in the Guaranteed Goals Challenge, we're going to break them down piece by piece so that you'll walk away with a guaranteed goal system that you'll be able to use over and over and over again in 2023. The challenge is happening January 10th through the 12th. You'll learn how to get out of the dreaming phase, how to make a plan that's right for you, how to finally stop procrastinating, and so much more. The best part is it's 100% free, no strings attached, and it's all online. So you can watch it from wherever you are, no matter what you want to start, whatever you want to do in 2023. If it's write a book, start a podcast, lose weight, start a business, scale a business, literally anything, you can accomplish it with this system. I guarantee it. Join the free Guaranteed Goals Challenge at acuff.me/challenge. That's acuff.me/challenge. acuff.me/challenge. And I'll see you on January 10th. All right, let's jump into the first part of my year in review. I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things on podcasts is when the host or the guest breaks the fourth wall. I like to see behind the scenes. That's what I'm always trying to do when I get to interview someone. I'm trying to get behind the brand or the expected answer. Like I know when somebody has a book out that they have like the 20 things they want to say about the book. And I want to hear those, but I also want to hear behind the scenes. I like to hear about the person's life. Like how do they really spend their days? What are they working on a Tuesday? What time do they go to bed? Who is the first person they call when something amazing happens? I think one of my favorite parts of the Dan Pink interview, you can go back and listen to that one in the archives. He talked about his writing process and how he wears earplugs plus Bose Quiet Comfort headsets. Like he wants to get that quiet. He needs that much quiet when he writes. I love that little detail. That's real life. I like real life. And I think part of the reason I like content like that is I think you can learn a ton of real world, real applicable lessons when you hear advice that people have actually tried in their own lives. I call it borrowing someone else's diploma. That's a concept that I've written about before, is that in moments like that, it's like you're borrowing someone else's diploma. Where does it say that you have to have the experience to learn from the experience? Just because it took me a year to learn something in my own life doesn't mean you can't learn the same lesson from an episode of a podcast. The example I've given sometimes is I learned a really expensive, time-consuming lesson about titling books when I titled a book the wrong title. And that was an expensive lesson. And I can teach you that lesson pretty quickly if I'll break that fourth wall. And so that's what I love to listen to. That's the books I love, is when the person steps kind of behind the scenes and says, hey, here's what's really going on. And so for the next 2 episodes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to review my goals from 2022. And then in part 2, share my goals for 2023. I want to talk about, okay, which ones in 2022 did I bomb? I mean, which goals in 2022 did I just fail tremendously? Like they didn't even make it out of January. You ever had a goal like that where like, you're like, I'm doing this. I'm going to do it all year. It's going to be amazing. And it dies on like January 7th. Like it barely makes it out of the first week of January. I want to talk about those goals. I'm going to talk about the ones that worked. Like which ones were spectacular? Which ones would I say, oh, that actually worked? If you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you might remember that at the end of last year, on December 21st, 2021, I shared my goals for 2022. And I promised in that episode, I said, you know what? I'll review these next year. I'll let you know how they went. So this is me fulfilling that promise. And it's episode 53 if you're curious. We'll link to it in the show notes. So without further ado, here are my goals from 2022. This is the actual list I had. It's in a Word document. I'm a Word document guy. The team always makes fun of me because I can't even like operate in Excel for a second. They're always like, we should use Google Docs so we can share them and talk that way. And I'm like, I don't know. We should carve it out of wood. I'm old fashioned. I am. But this is just a big Word document that I have that has my actual goals. And I broke them down in games. I think about goals in 5 different games. I'll talk a little more about that in the Guaranteed Goals Challenge, acuff.me/challenge. You can sign up for that right there, acuff.me/challenge. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'll get into that with a little more detail. But I think about them in kind of games, big buckets. So the first bucket is work. Here were the work goals I had. Number 1, grow our net revenue of our business by 10%. I was really putting a focus on net revenue because that forces me to think about expenses too, not just gross revenue. So with this one, I actually did this one. We're still closing out the book for the year on kind of our financial numbers, but this one I definitely did. I think we are really at like 16%, which is fantastic. Number 2, buy the Lego AT-AT when I hit a certain amount of revenue. So this is a huge Lego set. It's a UCS, which is like, I think it's the Ultimate Collector Series. It's this massive, do you remember, was it Empire Strikes Back? Yeah, so many people correct me if I get this wrong. Empire Strikes Back, where there's the huge kind of like walkers that like, they're fighting the good guys, like, They have a Lego set of that and it's massive. And I was like, oh, when I hit a certain amount of revenue, I'll get that. I did not do that. I did not do that at all. And I didn't do it for 2 reasons. One, I don't think I really even wanted it. It felt like kind of a fake goal, like a goal I just had in January that I really didn't care about. And 2, my wife, Jenny, has a pretty like serious rule that like she's cool with me building Lego cars, but she won't even say Legos vehicles because she knows it's a slippery slope into Star Wars. And she's like, that's a nerd line I can't cross. Like, I don't want you to have like Luke's land speeder or whatever. Like, I don't want you to have like the Millennium Falcon somewhere in your office. So that one I didn't do at all. I don't even know why I wrote it down. It should have died in the dream stage of goals, but it made it to the official list. Didn't do that one. Number 3, consistently maintain inbox zero. This goal has been so elusive to me for so long, and I finally cracked it. Like, I've done email since college. I remember in college when it first came out, I was like, this is dumb. I hate it. And that was back when, like, I'm so old that email was a black screen with green letters, green font, and you would type it in and you're like, this is terrible. I didn't have a computer in college. I had to go do my papers in the computer lab, which was the saddest, most depressing room on the entire campus because you never know if they were going to have a computer, and the printer never worked, and the customer support line, I think, just rang to an empty room somewhere. It was a terrifying, stressful place. But yeah, so I've tried to do inbox zero forever. I finally figured it out for me. It might not work for you the same way, but here's what I do. I try to get to inbox zero twice a week. The days that work for me are Monday and Thursday. So if I can start the week with an empty inbox, let's go. So much less stress that week. And then by Thursday, and I'm kind of in my inbox a couple times, but by Thursday, it's piled up a little bit and I need to empty it again so I can kind of go into the weekend knowing I did my commitments, I moved things forward. I don't feel like I'm at my best when I have 500 emails in my inbox or if I have 100 things that I'm behind on. And so I find that I do really well at emptying it twice a week. So that one I did really well at. Number 4, plan days at 75%. I know what this one means, but it's very vague. What I meant when I wrote it down was don't overschedule your day. leave some margin, because I'm learning that I'm not the best at estimating how long something is going to take me. Like I get it wrong both ways, which is frustrating. So if I think something's going to take a half hour, it often takes 60 minutes. If I think something's going to take 60 minutes, it often takes 30 minutes. Like I get it backwards both ways. So this was me saying, hey, only plan your days 75%, but this was too vague. I couldn't execute on that. It needed more detail. So I would say I bombed that one. Number 5, clear contracts, no share on social. This one, again, ironically enough, was too vague. What I was saying here was when I have a contract with a client or somebody I'm serving, I want it to be clear. I want the expectation to be clear so I know how to crush it for them. Like I want to do really well, but if somebody says, hey, we want to sponsor your podcast and we want you to share on social media. Like, what does that mean? I never know if it was enough or not enough. Like, so I was like, you know what? I should have really clear contracts. Let me ask good questions. But again, you can't execute on that. So it's not a good goal, too vague. Number 6, do a top 20 books of the year email on November 21st. So that did not happen, but that actually evolved into a podcast episode. I decided that would be a better podcast episode. Like I want to do a top 7 books that I read in 2022. And I did a podcast episode of that. We'll link to that in the show notes. So I think it's important to realize that some of your goals are going to evolve and change throughout the year. Don't lock yourself into January goals if something's different in November. Like if you recognize, wow, the environment's changed, the marketplace has changed, like I've got a business goal and things are completely different. Don't go, well, I've already made a decision in January. Like, 10 months ago, I decided something, 11 months ago, I decided something, so I have to keep going. No, it's okay to be flexible with your goals. This one I was flexible on, crushed it. Number 7, batch record podcasts, did not do. I'm trying to get better at that one because I want to get ahead of the podcast. I think the episodes are better when I record them ahead of time and I know here's what's happening over the next 6 weeks versus like one-off that aren't connected. So that one I didn't do though. I can get better at that one. Number 8, less back-to-back meetings. I did this one. I was more deliberate about not going from meeting to meeting to meeting. I don't do well when I've got like 5 meetings in a row and I run my schedule. So there's really no excuse for me to not be good at this one. Number 9, hit the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list with the new book. So I had a new book come out called Your New Playlist. Me and my daughters wrote it together. This is a classic example of a bad goal. And here's why. I don't control it. I don't control hitting the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list. Like I can have the sales, but you can still not hit lists. Like lists are kind of moody. They run by their own algorithms that you often don't know. So this one wasn't a good goal for me. This is more of a wish. There's a difference between a wish and a goal. And I would argue that with a goal, you have some degree of control over it. This one I didn't have any control over, didn't hit the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list, sold a bunch of copies, very happy with the sales of the book, but didn't hit the list. Probably shouldn't have been a goal to begin with. Number 10, figure out Goodreads. This was vague, but I actually did this one. Goodreads is where you post and share about books you're reading. And I actually posted every single book I read on Goodreads. So that one I crushed. I did over 50 books. They're all on Goodreads. You can follow me there if you want to see what I read this year. That one I worked on. Number 11, record an update on my goals on Monday, January 2nd, 2023. So last year I said, you know what? A year from now, I'm going to do an update episode about these goals. And what am I doing right now? Not only am I doing it, I'm doing a 2-parter. Crush that goal. Number 12, turn in my new book. Crush that one as well. I've got a new book coming out in the fall. I finished the manuscript. I got editorial approval. Like I did the things I was supposed to do with that book. I got it accepted. That was a huge one. Like what's interesting is on my list of goals, some of them are small, like post your books on Goodreads. That takes 30 seconds every time I read a book. That's super easy. Turn in a book and get a book accepted, much bigger, but I did that one. Personal goals. So this one, number 1, I said in conversations, give people the time of possession, like in the book Ninja Selling. I read this book about real estate called Ninja Selling. I'm not a real estate agent, but it had a ton of helpful information about how to run a great small business. But this one's too vague. Give people the time of possession. You know, in sports where Alabama has the ball 25 minutes and the other team only has it 15 minutes. That's time of possession. This was me trying to say, listen more, ask more questions, don't dominate conversations, but it's too vague. How would I track it? How would I execute on that? That wasn't a good one. Number 2, 150 ideas per month in my notebook. I write down my ideas in my notebook. I've said this to you before. I don't believe in writer's block. I believe in idea bankruptcy, meaning if you can't write, it just means you haven't been taking good enough care of your ideas. So this one I actually did. I've got a notebook that I've kept all my ideas in. I've easily had 150 ideas per month. So I crushed that one. Number 3, fill 3 notebooks. So I've got these notebooks. I said, I want to fill 3 of them this year. I did this goal. I accomplished it. I finished 3 notebooks, but I don't think it matters. I'm starting to retire goals that don't matter. What does it matter that I fill those 3 notebooks? I think I have this story in my head of like, to be a writer, you have notebooks on your shelf and they're colored and like, you can be like, oh, these are just full. Like, I think there's a story there that's no longer helpful. And I think it's important to always go, is this story still helpful? I don't think it matters that I filled 3 notebooks or 2 notebooks or 4 notebooks. I think that's a silly goal with a silly finish line. So I did it, but I'm retiring that one. That's part of what's beneficial about going through your goals is that you see something, and even if you did it, you go, I don't want to do that next year. Number 4, read 20 pages a day. Not a good goal for me. I'm not a huge daily reader guy. There's some days when I'll read 40 pages. There's some days when I'll read 5. There's some days when I'll read 0. There's some days when I'll read 60. This is one of those situations where I think it's helpful to have an average goal. I learned about an average goal from one of my friends. One of my friends told me that she had a daily goal to do 10,000 steps every day. 10,000 steps. That's a popular goal. A lot of people have Garmin's or Fitbits or Apple Watches, whatever. And they're like, I want to do X amount of steps a day. But she realized that some days that was just impossible. It was a Tuesday. She had meetings. She was traveling, whatever. And she got 3,000 steps. And then she got discouraged because she had failed her daily goal. But then she changed it to an average goal, meaning in a week, I'm going to average 70,000 steps. Over a 7-day period, 70,000 steps, which equates to 10,000 a day. But it meant that if she bombed it on Thursday, she had a Thursday where she only had 4,000 steps, then guess what? She could catch up on the weekend. She could do a long walk on the weekend with her husband and get like 15,000 steps or 18,000 steps. So that's how I treat my reading goal too. It's less about daily pages and more about overall, am I reading the amount of books I want to read every year? So I did hit my goal with how many books I read this year. I didn't read 20 pages a day because that's not how I'm wired. Number 5, only use the phone 2 hours a day. This one is silly. It's not connected to anything. Here's the thing. When you come up with a goal, you need to connect it to reality. The more you connect it to reality, the better. So here's where I didn't connect this goal to reality. I didn't sit down and go, okay, I'm going to only use the phone 2 hours a day. Let's check how often I use it. Ooh, because I would have found if I'm on it average 6 hours a day, it's not realistic to cut it to 2 hours a day. That makes no sense. It's much better to go, I'm going to cut it by 10%. I'm going to cut it by 20%. Or I'm going to cut Instagram by this amount. Or I'm going to cut Facebook by this amount to get specific. When you're not specific, you really don't have a goal that you're going to succeed at. So I'm learning that myself over and over and over again. Number 6, though, was also about the phone. Keep my phone out of my bedroom and the bathroom. And I nailed that one. Every night I plug my phone in this office where I'm sitting right now. I plug my phone. This is where the charger is. This is where it sleeps. Like, it's not invited to the bedroom. It's not invited to the bathroom, which is gross if you think about it, but everybody does. And so I did a really good job with this one. I feel good about that one. Number 7, listen to an audiobook every 2 trips. So I do a lot of business trips. I think I did like 42 last year, 42 business trips. And I said, I'm going to listen to an audiobook every 2 trips. That wasn't reasonable because it doesn't factor in that audiobooks have different lengths. So for instance, one of the audiobooks I listened to was Tinderbox about the oral history of HBO. It was like 40 plus hours. Another book I listened to, like Quincy Jones's book, was only like 6 hours. That's not realistic. So that's not a good goal. It's arbitrary. It doesn't make sense. So that one, I crushed the number of books I wanted to read. I didn't need to execute it this way. Family. Okay, family goals. I think you should have family goals, first of all. I think that most people are really pretty good at work goals because there's constraints, there's boundaries, there's expectations. Like you have a manager or a boss who says like, hey, here's your KPIs, or here's what we're going to measure. Here's this first quarter goal, second quarter goal. We have meetings we have to show up to. We have agendas, we have action items, we have all these things. And then we just kind of hope our family stuff happens organically. Like it just happens on its own. So this year I was deliberate about saying, no, I want some family goals. I want to make sure that I'm putting effort to my family in the same way that I put it into other areas of my life. So here are my family goals. Number one, launch Ellie to college. My oldest daughter, Ellie, was going to Sanford University in Birmingham, Alabama, and we were launching her. I would say this one's a little vague. I should have added more detail. I'm seeing a running theme. Like if the lesson we're taking is add detail to your goals if you really want to be successful at them, but this one worked. We crushed it. The move-in was great. The planning was great. She's so happy. She's having a blast. So I feel really good that we launched her successfully to college. Number two, throw the Frisbee with Ellie on Sunday afternoons. So this one needed a number because the way it's like reading right now is every Sunday afternoon. And that's just not realistic. Like that's not like, and then it becomes, there's this weird moment where you work for the goal versus the goal works for you. Like the goal should be working for you, not you working for the goal. So what happens is if I have a goal that says every Sunday I must throw the Frisbee with Ellie, it becomes really rote. It becomes really mechanical. It becomes really robotic. Now I'm not doing it out of joy. Now I'm not doing it out of connection. I'm doing it because like, hey, Ellie, it's 2:30. It's time to throw the Frisbee. Remember, we're doing quality time now. I am your dad. I love you. Do you have questions about boys? Like it becomes really fake. So I should have said 5 times, 6 times, 10 times. I picked Frisbee because it's one of our connection points. You might say, do puzzles with my kids. You might say, play a video game with my son. You can put anything into this. But for me, it was Frisbee. It was Ellie. I should have had a number. I did really well at this one, though. We threw the Frisbee a bunch. Number 3, run a 10K with McCrae. So we didn't do a 10K this year, but we're currently training for the Nashville Half Marathon. McCrae is signed up for the Nashville Half Marathon, which is amazing. It's next April. I'm helping her train right now for it. I'm actually out of town that weekend, but my brother Will is going to run it with her. And she seems really excited about doing it herself. So I'm trying to help as a parent, encourage as a parent, equip as a parent, but not make it my goal. So there's that dance where I want to encourage, I want to challenge her, I want to call her to be greater than she even knows she can be, but I'm also giving her enough room to make that goal her own so that I don't suffocate it with my effort, with my hustle. But that one, we didn't do it this year, but we are doing it next year, and I'm excited about that. Number 4, family goal, take a summer vacation with Jenny. So my wife, Jenny and I'm a workaholic, definitely. I'm working on it, ironically. I'm working on being less of a workaholic. That feels like some sort of riddle. But vacation doesn't come natural to me. I like to go, go, go. I have a hard time turning off all the things that you hear workaholics say. So one of my goals was take a summer vacation with Jenny, and I crushed this one. We spent the entire month of July in the mountains. What? Yeah. The entire month of July. And I only worked like 1.5 days a week during that chunk. So what that means is like on a Tuesday, I would have a bunch of meetings, or like on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, I would do something. But the other days we were going on hikes. We were working around, like we were doing other stuff. We were in creeks and waterfalls and vistas and all the stuff you think, we were driving in mountain towns. We were doing everything you do in a mountain. So that one I felt really good at. Crush that one. Health. Number 1, figure out a vitamin routine. This is so easy. Gummies. Like I don't know that this generation knows how good they have it with the gummification of vitamins. Is that a phrase? The gummification of vitamins? It is today on this podcast. Vitamins are so easy right now. They taste like candy. You can get them anywhere in like gigantic, just like jugs. And so I'm taking vitamins. That one's going pretty well. Number 2, this is so dumb. Be in better shape by March 12th. We are going on spring break, and I wanted to get in better shape for the spring break trip. This is the dumbest part. I'm just going to share because at the intro of this, I was like, oh, I love when people share their real stuff. This is real stuff, and it's dumb, but I'm going to share it. The phrase I wrote down on my paper was cut by Cabo. We were going to Cabo, and I was like, I want to be all cut. I brand goals with like the silliest, dumbest dad joke kind of phrases. That's the one I wrote, cut by Cabo. I didn't do this at all. It was faker than fake could be. Like this, who cares about this goal? I didn't. I just wrote it down because I was like, oh, that's a good health goal. Number 3, daily body scan, essentially a form of mindfulness. That's the exact sentence I wrote down. Didn't do that. I think what happened here is I read some book about doing a daily body scan where you're like, how is my head? How is my heart? How are my limbs doing? What do my feet feel like today? I think I did. I read something in a book like that, and I was like, oh, I should totally do that. And of course I didn't. That, again, fake goal. Now, this one I actually did. Number 4, 150 total CrossFit workouts. I crushed that goal. I did way more than 150. I tracked them all. I sent everyone to my trainer. Like, I was all over that. That one I feel really good about. You can see the difference between, like, the third goal on health was daily body scan. What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. 150 total CrossFit workouts. That's very clear. That's very actionable. So that one I did well on. Last one, number 5, take 100 steps backwards per day. I got that one from the Knees Over Toe guy. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. Great follow, like super good content, like such a good follow. But I just felt silly doing this, like taking 100 steps backward per day in my neighborhood. Like I just felt like a weirdo, and I think it really helps your knees. It just wasn't for me. So I retired it. And I think there's a real benefit to retiring goals along the year. Like, I think we need to retire them, especially in March. I'll talk a little more about that in the Guaranteed Goals Challenge. It's acuff.me/challenge. Sign up for that. But I think you should be able to retire goals. Relationships. This is kind of like the next category, friends, that kind of thing. I had 4 here that didn't work. Well, actually, one of the 4 worked, but 4 of them didn't work. Here's what I had. Number 1, I was going to run 26 times with a friend of mine. Number 2, I was going to have 26 coffees with an accountability friend of mine. Number 3, I was going to do 26 runs with 3 of my friends. Number 4, I was going to do 26 walks with a different friend. So you can see I'm saying every other week. One of them worked. I had the coffee with a friend every other week. We are so consistent on that. The other 3 didn't work. And the reason they didn't work was that I don't control their schedule. I control my schedule. I don't control other people's schedules. So what I should have said, the way to make that goal even better is to say, ask so-and-so to go on 26 walks. Ask so-and-so to go on 26 runs. That's different because I can do that. I don't control their schedule. I don't control that they get busy. I don't control that they travel a bunch, whatever. So this one with a little bit more detail would be different. Now, the one I did do well on was I wanted to do 12 meetings with Chip Dodd. Chip Dodd's my counselor. You can say performance coach, therapist, whatever phrase you want to use. I did 10 meetings with him this year, which is a win for me. That's a win. If I can get to 80%, 90% on some of these goals, it's a win, especially when it comes to relationships. So that one's a win. Okay. These are some random ones that I couldn't find a category for. Number 1, put together the Lego Lamborghini. I have this massive Lamborghini set from Lego. It's a Technic set. If you're a nerd, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't do that goal this year, but there's a good reason. I did the Ferrari instead. A client of mine who I'd done a favor for sent me the Lego Ferrari. It's massive. I did that one. It's on my shelf as we speak. So I just switched that one out. Number 2, random, stop running up the stairs. I'm going to fall at some point. I run up the stairs like a kid trying to avoid bath time. And I know I'm going to fall and I'm going to like break 2 teeth. And the people are going to be like, what happened? Did you get in a fight? And I'm like, oh, saving some orphans from a fire. Like, no, I was running up the stairs in socks and fell down and broke my teeth. So like, I was just like, I should not do that. I should just I can chill up a pair of stairs. Like I can, to quote Roy Vaden, I can take the stairs. I don't have to sprint the stairs. I did that one. Number 3, invest $10,000 in me. That sounds like I'm getting facials or massages, or like pedicures. No. I was just like, you know what? I want to, whether it's books, whether it's courses, whether it's classes, whether it's coaches, I want to be more deliberate about investing because I can get really stuck. I get really stuck on not moving forward in my education if I'm not careful. So that one I would say I didn't track it. So I'm going to mark that one as a failure. Number 4, I did invest in me. Like I did do a bunch of extra stuff. I bought a bunch of books. I read a bunch of books. I was deliberate about working with coaches. So that one I feel good about, but I didn't track it, so I'm not counting it. Number 4, write out the book of Proverbs and Matthew. So that one I took from Hunter S. Thompson. Yeah, was it Hunter? Yeah. He typed out the entire Great Gatsby because he wanted to know what it felt like as a writer to write words that good. And I thought that's a really interesting idea that you can learn by the physical act of writing out somebody's words. So I wrote out the book of Proverbs, the book of Matthew in my notebooks. That one I did. Last one, read a G.K. Chesterton book. I see his quotes all the time. I've never read one of his books. I did not do that one. I just didn't do it. I think that, I think this one I didn't do because I didn't review my goals enough in 2022. Sometimes if I don't stay in touch with the goals, I forget the goals. And this one, I think that's what happened here. I just completely forgot about that one. That was 2022 for me. That's what I did. And I think a review is always helpful, especially as you start planning your next year, or you'll make the same mistakes in both years. Like if you don't go back through and go, oh, this one didn't matter. Oh, that one did matter. Here's what I learned about that. Here's what I'm going to do differently next year. I think you just repeat the same mistakes again and again and again, and you never get better. Like you never iterate. So now for you, it's December 26th. This is the perfect time to work on your goals for the year. Hopefully when you listen to this, you thought, oh, I didn't know that could be a goal, or, oh, that's an interesting category. I didn't think about my family goals that way. My hope is that it inspired you to think about some goals in your own life. If you really want to crush them, join me and 10,000 of the most encouraging people on the planet for the Guaranteed Goals Challenge. It's 3 days of teaching from me, video replays, activities, and prizes. We always give away a Lego set because, of course, and it's 100% free. Sign up at acuff.me/challenge. That's acuff.me/challenge. Thank you for listening today. We'll put all the links in the show notes as always. And thank you for reviewing my podcast. Here's one from Rebecca0313 that I love. She said, can't get enough. If you're someone like me who wants to grow, learn, and basically be a little better than you were yesterday, this is a great podcast for you. Jon is a gifted communicator and uses research, humor, and encouragement to challenge us in all the best ways. He generously shares about his own struggles. I shared some struggles today, Rebecca. You're right. In a way that makes us feel seen and hopeful for the future. He's been an impactful teacher to me on reframing how I think and feel about many important aspects of life. As a fellow natural cynic and recovering perfectionist, me too. I'm naturally very pessimistic. Me too, Rebecca. Jon makes me feel like it's never too late to change that stinking thinking so that I can love myself and others better. That's so kind of you to say, Rebecca. Thank you for writing that. Thank you to everyone who reviews the podcast. Please make sure you subscribe or follow so that you don't ever miss another episode. I'll see you next Monday for part 2. And remember, all it takes is a goal.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast and to get access to today's show notes and exclusive content from Jon Acuff, visit acuff.me/podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast.